if anybody in the homeschool world, motherhood world, whatever it is giving you doubts as to what you are doing, it's stressing you out, it's leading to fear, I want you to put your blinders on.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course, because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
Everyone out there seems to have a newfangled way to get everything done. Maybe it's just my social media algorithm, but these tend to pop up a lot. Everybody has their own system. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with those systems, but I also think it's maybe just a little bit of this time of the year. It's still January. It's still a bit fresh. Hopefully, whatever New Year's resolutions, if you set those, are still going strong because you knew they would be a good thing. But everybody's got a new way and some fancy schmancy kind of thing to be able to get it all done. But you, the homeschool mom, you just want to feel like you've accomplished your homeschool at the end of each day. I promise that you have it in you to figure out the best routine for your family. And I'm going to draw it out of you today. Over my years of homeschooling, mostly this is pretty much in the very beginning, I tried hyper scheduling our day. I also tried copying other homeschool moms or whatever kind of schedule or something that I would find online. Think about when a lot of families were homeschooling, I guess, or they were doing school at home during 2020, 2021, all that kind of stuff. And I would do these different, I know that they had good intentions. And they were like, this is how you need to set up your day from this time to this time. And all of us homeschoolers are screaming, no, that's not what you need to do. But you could copy that person's, you could copy this person's. And it just, for me, was never quite right. And I had to lean into my family, myself, my 3 kids, and my husband's work schedule and all of the things that went into all of that. And I had to be willing also to adjust and modify each year. And I learned how to do that. And it is something that is huge. If you can come up with a routine from today, from this episode we're going to talk about in just a second, and then use that as the basis to adjust and modify as you need to every homeschool year, even halfway through the homeschool year or as the homeschool year is going on, you will be golden. You will be light years ahead of me. So learning how to adjust and to modify for each year once you have this basis. I've got 5 major areas that I want you to evaluate in just a second, but I highly recommend getting a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and writing these down. You can go ahead and pause the episode as we go along and answer the questions, or you can go ahead and write this all down and then take some time in a little bit. But don't forget to do it and then write down all your answers. But I want to encourage you to write down the first response. You might even now be listening to this, you write down the question, and then you have a first response. Like, write that in, okay? Because that's probably going to be where you're going to settle and land. That's like your gut response. And when it comes to moms, especially homeschool moms, we become amazing at troubleshooting. But sometimes you can feel lost. You can feel like you don't have it in you. And I know that you have it in you. And that's what we're going to draw out of you today. But before I get into those 5, I want to give one, maybe not a disclaimer, something I really want you to think of as you're doing this is ignore what others are doing. Remember how I said I was copying other people? I want you to ignore what your friends are doing, what your favorite homeschool blogger or social media influencer or podcaster is doing, and just focus on you and your homeschool, because it can give you some doubts and it can also stress you out. So if someone's giving you some great advice, hopefully this episode, this podcast overall, continue listening, continue taking from them. But maybe as you work through this routine, just kind of like put aside what you know others are doing. And if anybody in the homeschool world, motherhood world, whatever it is giving you doubts as to what you are doing, it's stressing you out, it's leading to fear, I want you to put your blinders on. And sometimes there have been people that it was not their fault at all. And they were just sharing on social media, and I was maybe a little bit jealous or a little bit stressed out that I wasn't doing everything they were. And I had to just unfollow them for a little bit. And then once I got my heart right, then I could go back and follow them and be like, yes, now I can take some advice and I can also find some encouragement in them because I'm not comparing myself. I'm just saying, what from what she's doing can I add? So put the blinders on. And especially right now, we're just going to focus on you and your homeschool. Okay, question number 1 is, are you realistic with the subjects you are doing? Are you trying to do every single subject or 10, 15 subjects, different topics every single day? Do you have like a dozen or more different curriculum or resources that you are trying to fit into every single day? It's going to be too much. It's going to be way too much. Now, you might have an older child who wants to do that much. They might be very academic and they might be doing just fine. Then you just let them do them. You let them do that. I am talking right now to the homeschool moms who are leading the home education and the academics with their children, and most likely they are still in the younger ages, or you have a wide range. But just, are you being realistic with the subjects? There are some subjects that are best to do every day, and we would call those the 3 R's, right? The reading, writing, and arithmetic. And you know what? I would actually even pare that down to the 2 R's, reading and arithmetic. So doing some math every single day and doing some reading every single day. If your child is not reading yet, that's you reading to them, or an older sibling reading to them, or them listening to audiobooks. Some type of reading, some type of something kind of pouring in and getting their imagination going. So it depends upon the age for that. Those, I would say, would be the bare minimum for a homeschool day. And you can decide on your homeschool days how long those will be. And and you could have different styles. I know everybody has a different style of homeschooling, or you have like a mix of different styles of homeschooling. Any of this can kind of fit with that. So then think to yourself, like, what daily? What do I want to accomplish daily? Are there subjects that I want to just do weekly? Maybe you might say, you know what? It'd be really good for us to do art. My kids really want to do art. Well, I don't want to do that every single day. But I'll take things out. We'll kind of modify a day and we'll do that weekly. Or maybe you're just like, we'll do it quarterly. Or an option is to look at your different subjects and do them in blocks. You might say, we are really going to dive into geography and history, and we are going to do that. So right now it's January. You might say through the rest of the winter, we're just going to really focus in on that. And then we're going to switch that time that we would be doing the history and geography, and we're going to do more science and nature study. And it's the same amount of time, but it's just different subjects. What are you doing for family learning? Do as much as you can family learning. Even if there is a wide range of kids, it is absolutely possible. So the first question to ask yourself is, are you realistic with the subjects you're trying to get done? Question number 2 is, what are the personalities, the temperaments, the strengths, the weaknesses of each child? Write those down. You know them off the top of your head. Just write their name and just a quick little note next to it so that you don't forget. But we really need to take into consideration their different personalities, their different temperaments, their strengths, and their weaknesses. You might have a child right now that is having a hard time with some things, or they're just, emotions are running high. Maybe they're in puberty, and it's just things are just kind of up and down, and even though they're getting the same amount of sleep as they normally did, maybe they just need a little bit more sleep, and they're not getting that because you're not realizing that's what the problem is. And so you're adjusting for whatever is kind of going on in them as well, but just really thinking about each child and how does that fit into, and to then not take it personally when a child does not like writing and refuses to do writing. Don't take it as a personal attack upon your character, but consider the individual children that are right there in front of you. If you're not quite sure who they are, then I want to encourage you to really focus in on your relationship with them and get to know them really well. The third question is, are you morning or afternoon people? Most of us try to get our homeschool stuff done in the morning because our kids are up early, but maybe your family is not. So a question to ask yourself is, when do you want to be done with your academics and with your home education in a day? And then count back, reverse engineer how much time it's going to take. You could look up how long does it take to homeschool a kindergarten, a third grader, a fifth grader, and so on. And those are just kind of generic ideas. Again, you're going to go back to what subjects do you want to do? And are you doing what's really realistic? And then question number 4 is also going to be really important for this. when you're trying to reverse engineer and think of how much time do you actually need to be done. I always wanted to be done by 12 noon. I didn't care if I had 3 elementary age children, or I had elementary, middle, and high school, or if I had 3 kids that were middle school and high school, I had all teens. It didn't matter. I wanted to be done at noon. Now, there was at times where my kids were taking online college courses, and that would take them a little bit longer. That didn't mean that they didn't take a little bit longer with their stuff, but I was like, I have other things to do. And so therefore, I counted back from that time to figure out when we needed to get started. And that doesn't mean that if you're like, well, I'm going to need 4 hours myself, does not mean that each child needs 4 hours. You might need 4 hours, but in between you sent kids on breaks and you've got a little one. And so maybe you have a kindergartner and they only take about 15, 30 minutes or so, but you still have that 4-hour block. Well, then they have 3.5 hours of free time or to play around you, and you got to have to figure out how to manage all that and everything. But figuring out if you're morning people or you are afternoon people, it's okay. Lean into whichever one you are. Question number 4, what subjects and topics are important to me? So ask yourself that. Is it important maybe for them to sit inside and memorize a poem, or is it more important for you to send them outside? It's okay to say both. You might want to balance that out, but what subjects are important to you? Now, there are some I think that we are seeing more and more that need to become important to us. How about financial literacy? How about being able to actually figure out a budget and to live within our means, and the budgeting, and how about career exploration as kids get older? These are things that we are seeing in our culture that kids just have not been equipped for. And then people are like, well, the schools are doing all this. You have to learn the Pythagorean theorem. How many times do you use that? But they don't teach us how to do taxes. Well, you know what? We're not in school. Like, homeschool, part of it is equipping our children for their futures. If the school is not equipping them for their futures, that's not on us. That's the school's choice. And people get so upset about it, online at least, especially. I'm like, well, then, if you are seeing that high schoolers don't know how to do certain things, then why don't you offer to provide some classes? I'm sure a local church would allow you to use part of their building, or go through the library and offer programs, or connect with kids that maybe you find one in your neighborhood and connect with others and say, hey, I'd like to do this financial literacy class, and do something about it. Complaining online? Don't get me started on that. It goes nowhere. But what subjects and topics are important to you? This is going to be unique to you. Ask your husband what's important to him. Maybe he's like, I'd really like the kids to know about gardening. Well, then make that important. He's like, I really want them to know home repairs. This all counts as homeschooling. And how just much more prepared they will be as they launch out and they have these basics. But it's also subjects. Maybe you are like, you know what? I'd really like for my kids to read Shakespeare. Maybe it's something that you really enjoyed. Now be prepared. You might not have all your children who are super excited about that, but figure out what is important. And then you can say to them, look, this is important to me that we do this. And you might need to find a more creative way to be able to get through whatever Shakespeare play that you are reading. But maybe you're saying, science experiments are fun, or history. I really think we need to understand history so much more. Do not neglect Bible and theology. Don't neglect the understanding of Jesus and the entire scope of the Bible and the story and how everything points to him and what he has done for us and the victory we get to live in every single day. Do not neglect that. Question number 5, and then we're going to wrap this up. And then I want you to work on these, right? You're going to answer these questions. You can then take a look at the day, and if you want, you can time block your day. So ask yourself, do I want to time block my day? If so, I do have an episode a couple of weeks ago, and I will drop that link in the show notes so you can kind of figure out sections of your day so that it does not, it'll overlap sometimes, but you're like, this is what we're doing during this time, so that you don't feel guilty about not doing it later time. And especially in that episode, I talked about the homeschool block so that you can then focus and you know that the other things have either happened already before the homeschool time block or they're going to happen afterwards. So you don't have to worry about it. You might not have to say to yourself in the middle of a math lesson, oh no, I have to call the dentist. We can scribble that down. Like, scribble it down. You don't need to call right then, because the afternoon time block, you have some time set aside for making those random phone calls and working on that to-do list. So ask yourself then, do I want to set this up as a time block of my day? I highly encourage you to. So in that episode, I talk about 3 major time blocks for the homeschool day. There are more, but that really kind of helps you figure out your academic side and getting all that in. But ask yourself, what are some of the subjects? Well, we ask ourselves, what are some of the subjects, but like, what order do I want to do the subjects in? So there are some years where you might say, you know what, we are going to do the hardest subjects first. And you might have some kids who say, yes, I want to do the hardest subjects and get it done with. I want to do my math right away so that is over and done with. I had kids who would get up earlier so that they could then get their math homework, their math work done, their math lesson for that day done before we would go ahead and do our morning time, our family learning, because they didn't want that hanging over their head. I was like, go for it. That's absolutely fine with me. And they were doing at that point a program that they could do their own lessons. They didn't need me for it. Or is it easier to start with the easier ones? Do you have a child, again, going back to their personalities and such, that it is better for you to kind of start off a little bit light with them until they wake up a little bit more and they become a little bit more used to like, oh, so we are doing homeschool again today. You'd be like, yes, we are 4 years into this. And yes, we are doing it today. And yes, we will be doing it tomorrow and the next day as well. But what would be a good rough outline for your day? And coming up with those subjects in the order. Understanding that there's a lot of bouncing back and forth. And so when you come up with a rough outline, you think to yourself like, who needs me for what subjects? Like I talk about that math and how at some point I stopped doing lessons because I was like, okay, this is getting to be a little bit higher level of math and I'm not able to explain it as well. And you don't really, to be honest, they didn't always want to hear it from me. So I was like, we're going to let someone else teach you this online. And then you can go ahead and do the work and I will go ahead and check your work and make sure that you've gotten the problems right. Or if they're wrong, I'll let you know. But just saying, what can I do independently? What do they need me for? And knowing that there are times, and I know I've mentioned this before, that during the homeschool year, I would just be so exhausted. Maybe not always physically, but mentally from the constant jumping back and forth. And this child, because I wanted to get done, but I also felt like if I took too much time and they were just sitting there waiting for me to come do a math lesson, like the attitudes would go down. They would become deflated. So asking yourself, what is the best lineup, we'll say, for your subjects to get those done? So you got all those questions down, right? And you're going to do some work right now so that you guys can get like a really good routine for your homeschool. If you enjoy what I share here, I share more over in a weekly newsletter. You can join that weekly newsletter with the link that is in the show notes. Would love to be able to pop into your inbox.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.